Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Sunday morning, a little over a week past our show, and I just wanted to do a bit of a check-in, see where we're at. Um, it's been a really good week for eating. We've been binging pretty hard, uh, knocking down all those cravings we've had for the last 12, 16 weeks. I only started recording my contest prep 8 weeks out, but I actually I call it soft dieting, where I basically just eliminate all the junk food from my diet, all the soda and all the ice cream and all the really bad, I wouldn't say bad eating, but like overeating. And yeah, 16 weeks out, I started just kind of cutting foods. 12 weeks out, I basically eliminated all the sugary, refined foods, and then 8 weeks out, we really started dieting. Um, I like to progress into a show like that, and it makes it a little easier transitioning into a diet, whereas a lot of people just set a date and then they cut it off. Anyways, I'm just gonna weigh in here, and we're gonna see where we're at. We rebounded pretty hard with the water. I had a bit of edema earlier this week, where after being really dehydrated from the show, your body holds water in like the legs and stuff, so I had like swollen ankles. My morning weight this morning is 220. I went as high as 230 this week. And a lot of people mistake that weight for like post-show gains, or it's like anabolic state or something they think that they're in, where like their body's like Superman, but it's actually just your body reacting to being dehydrated, and it's just holding tons of water, and then you're basically flooding it with carbs and salts. So you swell, and it's not necessarily a good thing. It can be unhealthy, so you gotta watch that. But we're up 20 pounds from the show, so that's, I think at this point, a lot of that is water, but a lot of that is carbohydrates, filling the muscles up. I'm pretty swollen these days. Like, we're feeling some pretty good pumps these days in the gym, and yeah, it's been good. So I'm just gonna put you guys down here if I can. Yeah, we got some pretty solid bloat front and back. We're a little wider than we were, but we flex the abs. They're still there. We haven't done too much damage. A lot of this is sub-Q water and that, so doing an actual skin fold a week out will actually kind of tell us what kind of fat we've put on. We were 4.5, now we're back up to 6. So we've undone the last few weeks of dieting, but that's okay. Should I decide to do nationals, I think 6 millimeters was my 3-week out measurement, and we're still 7 weeks out from this next show if we decide to do it. Yeah, so we've reversed we've done a bit of a reverse diet. We'll call it that because it's not nice to call it a binge, but it was a bit of a binge. But anyways, let's get some selfie stick action going here. Look at how swole I look like. Holy crap. That's what food can do, the power of eating. Anyways, so should we decide to do the show, I think if I did decide to do it, I'd start dieting after next weekend. I'm still gonna take it easy this week. I haven't gotten the food off the brain yet. Well, it's going. It's not what it was earlier this week. I can actually walk past a bowl of chips without eating the whole bowl. So I'm making some progress on the craving front. Anyways, if my skin fold goes back up to even 7 or 8 millimeters this week, which I don't think it will. I think it's going to kind of stay where it is. Yeah, the food cravings have subsided mostly, so it's just a matter of kind of rebounding and maintaining that balance. Typically, like when you come out of a show, everybody kind of goes like this, and then there's a correction, and then sometimes people dip again, and then you eventually kind of find that level normal place where you're at. I said to my wife yesterday, I'm like, I feel like I'm binging all day, but when I actually think about what I'm eating and how I've eaten in the past prior to being in show prep or anything, that's how I ate every day. Like 3 years ago, eating that fast food twice a day wasn't abnormal for me. Coming home after work and just polishing off like a box of white powder donuts, that was okay. I would sit there and eat like a pound of donuts and drink 2 liters of chocolate milk and go to bed, and that was like what I would do every day. And I never thought that was binging. I just thought that was me getting calories in for bodybuilding or whatever, just trying to gain mass. Because for me, as a hard gainer, as an ectomorph, I've always had to eat like huge calories just to gain weight. So in some post-show call them reverse diets, but sometime in some of my other contests after the show, I've tried just to get huge. Like I did a bodybuilding show, and I was like, you know what? I wasn't anywhere near the top of my class. I'm gonna get so swole, so I'm just gonna eat my face off, everything. Make sure I'm getting 300 grams of protein in every day, and just fill the rest with carbs. Like just eat until I can't fit anymore. Even when I did that, after like 6 months of doing that, my body fat would only go up a little bit. Like I would never really go over, say, 12 or 13%. So knowing that, even with 2 weeks after this show, um, it's pretty much impossible for me to do any real damage to my physique. So I think if I start dieting for nationals 6 weeks out, it'll be fine. But I haven't really made the decision to do it or not yet. It's in Halifax this year, which is about, I don't know, it's like a 7 or 8 hour flight from Vancouver. It's not a cheap flight. Domestic Canadian flights are way more expensive than what you guys have down in the United States, and I think it's something like $1,000 a person. It's gonna be around that. I know some people have gotten tickets cheaper, but when I'm 6 weeks out, I'll be a little more limited in what I can buy. And then yeah, so it's a bit of a journey. I know. The other thing is when you're doing a show that requires you to fly 6-8 hours like that, your body's gonna end up. Your body does weird stuff when you put it up into altitude, and a lot of guys have like they give themselves a 2 or 3 day period to kind of rebound and recover from the flight, because you will find you get bloated. And anybody who's been on a flight, you know, your like legs swell up. You get to your hotel room the night after your flight, and you know, sometimes I get it like where your hands, your feet feel like they're even throbbing, and that's just from retaining water or whatever. You know, you dehydrate yourself up in the air. They don't give you any water, and then you haven't eaten. You come down, you go find a meal, and like yeah, there's a bit of a rebound period there. So a few of the people I've talked to who have done trips requiring flights say to drink lots of water and stay hydrated, and then as soon as you land, go find a gym and do some training, even though you may or may not want to, just to help the body kind of get back in its rhythm. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to reflect on the show now. It's been a week. I actually made a video like 2 days after doing some reflection, and I deleted it. I thought it was a little bit too soon. So giving it a week, thinking about it, looking it over, getting all my stage photos back, it kind of gives you an opportunity to reflect. You learn a lot every time you do these shows. So one of the interesting things, and what I mentioned about the edema, was I ran the what is it called, Rip Freak diuretic Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the day of the show. And what that does is the dandelion in there, it naturally just pulls your intercellular water out. It pulls the water out of your muscles and your fat, and it helps you lean out, thin the skin, and dry out. So I had run that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the week prior for that photo shoot I did, and I think what I had the same effect. Sorry, I'm just getting too tired. It's kind of creepy me sitting here like this, but what else? I think what I had for show day was a bit of a rebound going on. I wasn't quite as lean as I wanted to be. If I look at my stage photos, I'm quite lean. Like I'm pretty happy with how I looked, but I think I might have actually been a little bit tighter at the photo shoot. And I think what happened was coming off the diuretics after the photo shoot, going into the show, which was like 4 days later. I think I had rebounded from that, and I was holding water at the show because yeah, I did cut water. I did cut water when I was running the diuretics for the show, but not as much water as I had before, and I didn't get as lean and as cut up as I had before doing the exact same things with my diet. And I think there was some resistance from my body there because it had rebounded from the photo shoot water cut. Anyways, yeah. The other issue, looking back, the other thing was there was a huge kind of I don't want to call it an issue, but it was a bit of a posing issue. Our local bodybuilding organization called the BCABBA had specified very strict and stringent rules requiring men's physique posing to be a certain way. They told us we had to stand straight facing the judges. They told us like your right hand has to be on your hips, your left hand has to have fingers pointing to the floor, and then when you do your turn to the side, you have to do the same thing. When you turn to the back, your back pose has to be, directly facing away from the judges. They told you as much as like, there was as specific as to say that you couldn't turn your head, you had to look straight ahead, and they told you that your right hand had to be on your hip. So for a lot of guys who do men's physique, you'll know like when you do a back pose, a lot of guys put both hands straight to their sides. You're going to get a more symmetrical look in your lats. And a lot of guys will turn to the side, show like a face profile from the back, which kind of adds some flavor, some style to your posing, and it kind of helps you display your physique. So I did the morning show. I don't have a big waist, but I have a wide waist, and so for me to face forward, I feel like it took away from my physique. I normally kind of rotate the hips, turn them a bit. I get a better V taper. I think my physique looks considerably better when I do that. And having that option taken away kind of limited my physique. And what had happened was I had done the mandatory posing in the morning, and they put me in the second call out. So at that point, I was like, well, screw this. Like, if I'm not placing, then I'm going to pose the way I want to look. Because at that point, I was thinking photography. I'm like, I want to have decent stage photos. I hate posing straight on. It sucks. So I was like, well, I'm second call outs. I'm going to pose the way I want to pose. As soon as they called up our second call out, and I changed my posing and went to the back of the stage, they added me back to the first call outs. It's like, oh, that's interesting. They like that posing better. Obviously, like, when I switched to that posing, I think I look a lot better, and I think the judges thought I looked a lot better, so they actually pushed me back into the first callouts. But then I chickened out again, and when I was back in that first callout, I went back to the mandatory poses because I didn't want to be, I don't know, disqualified, I guess. I don't know how strict they are, but looking back at the photos from this week and looking back at some of the other competitors who had placed really well, none of them were doing that. It's really strict posing, so I feel bad for people like myself or people who really followed the posing, because I think they should have done better than they did. But it is what it is. I'm nationally qualified now, and I can't really complain. So I'm grateful that I placed top 5. I'm happy with that. I think I could have done better if I changed a few things, but so could have other people. Other people could have done better. People who didn't place in the top 5 could have come into the top 5 and beat me if they had known about the posing in that. So I'm just happy to be moving forward. I think going to nationals, we don't really get like some newsletter saying this is how you have to pose. You have the freedom to kind of just show your physique in the way you want, much like at the IFBB. When you guys watch the Olympia and that, every single one of those top 10 guys walks out and they have a totally different style and a flavor. When they're standing doing their front pose, they all look completely different, and they're judged just on their overall look, which is what men's physique is all about. And yeah, you're not forced into fitting into somebody's mold, and that's kind of one thing I like about it. Is yeah, you get to show your personality, you get to pose the way that you think your body looks good, and then the judges go from there. And usually, when people are allowed to pose that way, they do better. Anyways, yeah. Other than that, this week's been good. I didn't do much of a controlled reverse diet. I did binge. I've basically just been trying to knock things off my list. Eat everything in sight, and it's been good. Training's been crazy. Putting that weight on, you know, you get that extra fluid volume, you get that extra blood volume, you get all that extra glycogen, and the workouts have been crazy intense, like really strong. And the DOMS after the workouts, the delayed onset muscle soreness, is real. So I know I'm making some strength gains. Should I decide to do nationals, I'm going to try to use this period right now to do a little bit more growing. Every time you kind of level up, you want to bring a little bit more hardness, fullness, size. I was pretty intentional with the first show to kind of, I wouldn't say lose size, but I wanted to come in depleted, lean. I know at an amateur show in men's physique, you don't want to look like a heavyweight bodybuilder, so I was pretty good about controlling that. And then into BCs recently, last weekend, I was trying to put on a bit more size, and for nationals here, I'm just gonna kind of, if I do it, I'm gonna go full out and try to get as big as I can before I start my cut in a couple weeks. So I'll either start my cut next week, or I may go as far as to do 2 weeks of kind of balanced dieting, where I just do like a maintenance diet for 2 weeks. So from the 6-week out point to 4-week out, I won't run a calorie deficit or a surplus. I'll try to time my meals really well, keep my protein intake up, and continue to build muscle for those 2 weeks. So I might actually only really run a calorie deficit for 4 weeks. Yeah, I got to plan it really well, but I don't want to come into the nationals smaller or leaner. Not leaner. I want to be leaner, but I don't want to come in smaller or less full or more depleted than BCs. I want to time it really well and hit the nail on the head as far as getting this show right. I actually think I will do better at nationals than I did at BC's. BC typically generates the best physique athletes in Canada. It's kind of our culture over here, and a lot of the BC guys are going to avoid nationals this year just because of the cost and just uh, the proximity time-wise to nationals. It's 8 weeks, so it's kind of a weird gap to try to work through. Usually nationals are within a couple weeks of provincials, so you don't have to keep your diet going that long. So if people have been dieting for not 8, but 12 weeks or 16 weeks, typically people will diet for BCs. To go another 8 weeks is quite a stretch. It's going to be really hard, but I think if I execute my plan and do a 4-week reverse diet / maintenance diet, and then I give it everything for 4 weeks, I think I can handle that and still get to enjoy this beautiful Vancouver weather. It's very beautiful this weekend. We've been breaking all the heat and dryness records. It's been like one of the driest Mays on record, and I think they're saying it's going to break all the records. It's only rained like 2 days all month, and it's been like 25 to 30 degrees most days, which is in Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It's like 90 degrees. It's like 85, 90 degrees. I don't know, something like that. It's warm. For us, it's warm. We're all white-blooded Europeans up here, and we're used to the cold weather. So as soon as it hits like 90 degrees, which is probably normal for most Americans, we all freak out and go to Home Depot, and the air conditioners all sell out. So we got our air conditioner right here. Being a bodybuilder, being on fat burners and stuff, if your room is hot, you're not going to sleep, and if you're not going to sleep, you're not going to recover. So I leave that thing cranked up all day. So it's nice and chilly in here for the evenings. Anyways, I think that was everything I wanted to talk about. It's been a good week. I think at the beginning of the week I was pretty against the idea of doing nationals, but as the weeks progressed and I've started to get fat, I've decided that's not happening. As getting fat is not happening. Nationals might happen, but the other thing is we have the Vancouver Pro Show happening the weekend after nationals in Halifax. So even if I don't go to Halifax and I'm still here in Vancouver, my wife's going to be selling her She Is clothing at a booth. We purchased a booth at the Vancouver Pro Show, and we have some people we're trying to line up to come visit our booth, and hopefully people want to meet the aesthetic quad father, and we'll get a bit of a lineup going. But I don't want to be a tubby. I don't want to be one of those athletes who's known for being tubby in his off season. So I never really am, but when you get into bodybuilding and fitness, you think that 10% body fat is fat, and we walk around, and if you can only see 4 of our abs, we consider ourselves obese. But I'd like to be pretty cut up for the Vancouver Pro Show. There's going to be a lot of cool people in town. I know Rich Piana's coming up. We've got Flex Lewis, Dana Lynn Bailey's going to be here, and you don't want to stand in a picture with Dana Lynn Bailey and look like a fat blob. So hopefully we get to meet some of these cool people and get some cool pictures, and we'll find out where they're training and go throw some weight around, grunt beside them. Anyways, it should be good. I think Rich Piana's coming with the 5% crew, which will be fun. I know Rich Piana called me. He called me out on social media a few times, but it's all in fun. He's a good guy, and it'd be interesting. I've met him a few times, but it'd be interesting to see him here in Vancouver. And anyways, summer's looking like it's going to be a pretty good time. I'm in the midst of closing down my metal fabrication business. I'll be focusing on my wife's clothing business, helping her grow that. I've got some other things planned for myself. You guys will see those in the next few weeks. I'm going to kind of try to do my own clothing line, lifestyle brand, but I won't say too much about that right now. It's I want to make sure I have everything nailed down before I really release anything, but it should be big. I think it'll be pretty cool. I think a lot of people locally will like it. It's I'm excited for the summer. A lot of changes in my life, and a lot of cool things happening. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you guys following, and if you've watched this far, you've watched 19 minutes of me yakking, so that's an accomplishment I don't think many of you will get here. But anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great week, and see you next time.